I'm depressed.
No, why are you depressed? Didn't boys invite you to come to their lacrosse game?
I did get invited to a lacrosse scrimmage an hour away by the varsity lacrosse team, or the freshman varsity lacrosse team.
Does that mean there's a freshman team that's not the varsity team?
There's freshman JV. I learned that today.
There's that many people who play lacrosse in Kentucky?
They're actually a really great group, and there's like 8 of them. 3 of them kept being like, can I use the bathroom? Can I get water? And then they'd come back and they were like coughing, and I was like, are you hitting the vape? And they were like, no. And I was like,
absolutely they are.
I just went, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a cop. I don't care. Let's just be for real right now. Then later, one of the kids was like, I just want you to know I don't vape. And I just went, I'm not a teacher. I'm not a cop. He was like, I feel like you don't believe me. And I was like, not a teacher.
He's like, I don't vape, but I do galaxy gas. I am just doing whippets in the bathroom.
This is a school that costs like $10,000 to go to.
Those are exactly the kids who are doing galaxy gas. They have access to their parents' Amazon accounts.
Yeah, straight up. But
wait, why are you depressed?
I don't know. I just sometimes feel sad inside. I don't know. I have a house husband and he's cleaning today, and I feel bad because he's cleaning all day. If somebody is like doing chores around me, I'm like, you're mad at me. You hate me.
That is literally his job. I need you to be a feminist about this, and I need you to lock in and remember that quote unquote women's work is work. It is labor.
Facts. And I worked this week. He's working this week. He's getting his hours in.
Yes.
It's all right. Welcome back to Informed Attraction, a podcast hosted by one fat man and one little coat.
Am I a little coat?
Yeah, I'm the fat man and I'm wearing you as a little.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. I told my husband I wanted to wear his skin the other day in a loving way. He didn't think that it was as loving. He was like, that's a little odd. And I said, no, I want to be inside of your skin.
I'm Mackenna Goodrich.
And I'm Dr. Aubrey Hoffer. And this is Informed Attraction, a podcast about how Jack Black was hot in School of Rock, despite what the 14-year-old boys I talked to said.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you brought this up to the kids that you work with.
Yeah, so long story short, I do this intervention with my job that involves me going into schools and talking to children about body related issues. And I have been talking to these boys at this very rich private school near me. And I casually mentioned that Jack Black is attractive in School of Rock. And they were visibly shocked. They were like, this guy? And then they even pulled up a picture on Google Images and they were like, this? You think this is attractive? And I said, yes. However, I think their real issue was not because he's fat, it was because of his hair.
And I'll say in School of Rock, that's valid. That's a valid critique. The hair is, it's a choice.
Yeah. So, this is sort of the epilogue of our Funny Fat Man series. What I had wanted to do in the Funny Fat Man series was highlight some prominent figures in the funny fat man archetype. So we looked at the origins with Roscoe Arbuckle. We looked at one of my favorite examples of this trope with Chris Farley. And this episode is more of just a casual chat about funny fat men in media, sort of from maybe the 1990s to present, thoughts about funny fat men, and also The Holiday, starring Jack Black, who's barely in the movie.
Yeah, I think that when I was looking at the outline last night, I realized that kind of what we're going to do here is we talked about Chris Farley, who was very, Gen X. We're going to briefly talk about Henry Zebrowski, which is sort of elder millennial kind of vibes. And then we're going to but towards the end, we're going to talk about 2 people who are on the Dropout Network, who are both, young millennials. And I think that you can, track the change in how fat men perform comedy in relationship to their body as you look at that lineage. And then, there's some Jack Black and Rob McElhenney side quests. One millennial funny fat man that we're not going to talk about as much is Caleb Hearon. I find Caleb very, very funny. I really like his podcast, and I've seen a little bit of his other stand-up, but I don't know as much about him as all of the other people we're going to talk about today, but it would be remiss to not bring up Caleb Hearon in an episode about funny fat men. The So True podcast is great, and Caleb is very funny, and I'm very excited for the movie that he's going to be in, directed by one of the Wysocki sisters.
Yeah. See?
And we're back to Roscoe Arbuckle.
I think that it's interesting to think about some of the themes of funny fat guys. I think this is true in the comparison with Roscoe Arbuckle and Chris Farley, but also true when we think about other men who embody this trope, like John Candy and John Belushi. A big part of their comedic style is physical comedy, self-deprecation, and lovable charm. These are men who are able to move their bodies in really agile and cool ways. Oftentimes their comedy is based on this idea of, I'm the butt of the joke. I have autonomy over that. And I'm just an everyday guy. And I think that a big part of why the self-deprecation is so prevalent when we think about fat men doing comedy, fat women too. Like, I think that a lot of Rebel Wilson's roles have been based in this, is fat bodies are not really associated with aggression. Like, fat bodies are sort of infantilized in a weird way, where it's like you're jolly and happy and lovable and, warm and relatable. And humor is a way that we can disarm stigma. I think that for a lot of fat people, there's this idea that if I can make someone laugh at me because of a joke that I'm telling, that I have ownership over that. And that's different than when other people make fat jokes about me at my expense.
I think that's really true, which is so interesting too, because I feel like I was thinking about sumo wrestling a lot. There is a play that was at the Public Theater that is about sumo. It's so funny because obviously sumo wrestling is so athletic and also so scary. But I think that as a kid, you get introduced to sumo wrestling as haha, it's funny that fat guys fight.
Yeah.
Because it's not viewed as as skillful and as aggressive as it actually is.
Yeah, it's because I think when we see sumo wrestling portrayed in media, the joke is it's these slow, blocky figures that are moving toward each other. When if you actually watch sumo wrestlers fight, it's insanely hard. I'm actually so curious about the history of sumo wrestling. We should do a little offshoot episode at some point where we talk about that, because I think that's
Didn't
interesting.
they talk about sumo in Freakonomics, or was it a Malcolm Gladwell book? There's some If Books Could Kill-esque book that talks about sumo wrestling, and it's just white dudes pretending to know things about sumo.
I think it might be Malcolm Gladwell, which is a multiracial man who thinks he knows a lot about
Wait,
things.
is Malcolm Gladwell not a white man?
Malcolm Gladwell is half black.
Is that real?
100. Look at him.
Okay,
I will literally eat my fucking hat if Malcolm Gladwell is not half black.
I've never seen him. His mom is black.
Yeah, his mom is a Jamaican psychotherapist.
Damn it. Okay, Malcolm, I'm sorry for calling you a white man. You're not a white man. Oh, his Colin Powell is his distant cousin.
Okay.
We're too young to care about that. Okay, moving on. I think a thing that I wanted to bring up too, you had a note in here that was about how fat men in media are almost never just regular people.
Mm-hmm.
A person who I think is challenging that now, since I think a lot of what we're talking about today are ways in which this has gotten challenged. I think Zach Cherry, who is on Severance, is getting to play a lot of regular dudes, which is so exciting.
Yeah,
because he was the bookstore guy on You, and then he was in one episode of Succession, and both of those were comedy roles, but they were sort of the character in You was sort of annoying best friend, and then he was in one episode of Succession and has a great scene with Kieran Culkin. But in Severance, especially in season 2, I'm not going to spoil anything that happens, but we're getting a much fuller look at his character, and so I think that Zach Cherry is on the front lines of this right now.
Well, it brings up a point that I wanted to make later, where when we think about representation in media, right? There's sort of two ways that you can approach it. I think the first is having a fat actor or whatever X identity actor just in a role where identity is not necessarily important for that role, right?
Yeah.
These Zach Cherry roles that you're describing, weight, race, gender, those aren't necessarily essential to those characters. And I think it is good representation where when you have characters where those aren't fixtures of the character, that anybody can play them. So why not a fat person? Why not a
Right.
trans person? Why not whatever? But then I think that, and this sort of transitions us a little bit into the holiday, you have times where it's like, hold on a second, that actually doesn't really work because identity is important when we are attached to certain characters or for especially main characters in a rom-com.
Yeah, and I'll also just mention I think that like is sort of the in between Zach Cherry and Jack Black. Like Zach Cherry is a black man,
Yeah.
and there is a racism element to all of this. We've like mostly talked about white men
Yeah.
here, and we will talk about another black man later. But there is a thing that like black fat men and white fat men are often cast very differently,
Yeah.
and like black fat men often get cast in like dumber and like more you use the word
Yeah.
buffoonish roles, whereas like white fat men get to be like endearing and aw shucksy and a way that black men don't get to be.
Yeah, I think that, there are obviously really bad depictions of like white fat men. Like I think of like the fat bastard character in Austin Powers, which is just
Oh, I
so
mean, we gotta get into
uh,
fat suits at some
it
point because like oi oi oi.
yeah, it's just so dehumanizing and really kind of gross to think about. But then you do have these more lovable examples like the Chris Farleys and the John Candys where people are endeared to them. And I tried to think of a salient example of that for a fat black man, and I really couldn't. Unfortunately, the only thing that really came to mind was the 2000s Fat Albert movie.
Which is a fat suit.
Yeah.
I genuinely think that like if we were making this a year from now, we would feel more this way about like Zach Cherry's character in Severance, but that show's ongoing and also not a comedy. It's a drama.
I also just refuse to watch any show until it's over. This is a fun quirk about me, guys, because I saw the Game of Thrones finale in real time. All my whole life, people were telling me, watch Game of Thrones, watch Game of Thrones. And then I saw when Game of Thrones ended, every fucking week, all the Game of Thrones fans in my life were talking about it. And then I just watched them. I watched it happen. It fell apart in front of me.
Have you continued watching Succession?
No.
Aw, I love Succession.
It's hard. Me and my husband are very much like movie people, I think, rather than TV people, because we'll watch a few episodes of a TV show and be like, this was cool. But our favorite thing is just to like watch a movie at night.
Yeah, which is fair. Well, last night, what movie did you watch, Aubrey?
Last night we watched The Holiday, which is the longest movie of all time.
The Holiday is 2 hours and I think 12 minutes long. For a rom-com, that is obscene.
Yeah. I have so there are so many thoughts and feelings that I have about The Holiday. I don't even know if I want to get into the Jack Black thoughts first or
Well, let me introduce for people who don't know about what The Holiday is. Let me say what The Holiday is. Let me flex the description I wrote last
all
night.
right.
The Holiday is a 2006 film directed by Nancy Meyers about two women, one from LA and one from England, who arrange a home exchange to escape heartbreak during the holiday season. Jack Black plays Miles Dumont, a Hollywood film composer working with Amanda, who is played by Cameron Diaz. When Amanda and Iris, who's played by Kate Winslet, switch places, a little flirtation sparks between Miles and Iris. The two main romances in this movie are between Cameron Diaz and Jude Law, and then Kate Winslet and Jack
Yeah.
Black.
So my favorite thing to do is look up what actors auditioned for roles in movies, and I did that before I watched this, and I found out that Jimmy Fallon auditioned for the Jack Black role. So the whole time I was watching it, I was thinking, what would this movie be like if Jimmy Fallon was in Jack Black's role? And the movie would have been exactly the same because weirdly, it's Jack Black playing a Jimmy Fallon type of character.
Yeah, it's really interesting too because I saw that thing too about Jimmy Fallon auditioning for it, but it also I saw that Nancy Meyers specifically created the character for Jack Black after watching School of Rock. And this is a quote from her, which I think really just is so fascinating. She commented that when I was thinking of this movie, I thought he was someone I would like to write a part for. And I'm aware he's not Clark Gable. He's not tall, dark, and handsome, but he's adorable. He's lovable. It's my way of saying this is the right kind of guy. This is what most guys look like if they're lucky. He's adorable, and why not? And it's right in the line between like genuine compliment and backhanded compliment. It's like Nancy's playing, she's towing, she's right in that line.
Yeah, like my big issue with The Holiday is that it wanted to be two movies, and instead it's one movie that is two 1 hour and 15-minute movies. But also the Cameron Diaz and Jude Law plot is 80% of the movie.
Yeah, because Jude Law's so sexy.
I will say Jude Law is fucking hot in this movie.
I mean, I genuinely think the reason for all of this is that they started filming this movie and everyone involved went, oh, we need to put this man on camera as much as possible. Because, like, I've seen Jude Law in other movies. Let me be clear. There is something about him in The Holiday where I'm like, no one has ever looked this good.
Do you know how many children Jude Law has?
So many. I looked this up when I watched The Holiday a few years ago.
He has 7 children.
Yes, and with like different women.
Slay. He's got that breeding fetish. Also, Kate Winslet is so fucking sexy. Kate Winslet to me is a woman who for her entire life has been a MILF.
Yeah, you're right. You're correct.
Like even when she was young, she was giving MILF, and I love it.
Yeah.
I just want to be nestled between Kate Winslet's gorgeous, beautiful breast and
Okay.
I would
in a sex way or in a mother way.
Maybe both. I think either would heal me.
Definitionally big mommy milkers, I guess.
She is so perfect and so beautiful. She just, everything about her to me also just screams bisexual. And I think that we would get along very well. Like, I just have no doubt that if me and Kate Winslet could just smoke a blunt together, we'd be hitting it off.
Not me Googling, is Kate Winslet bisexual?
That is the face of a woman who has lusted for other women. Also, I found, like, I thought that the movie was interesting because basically, so Kate Winslet's character opens the movie with a narration, and it does the thing that I hate in movies where they open with a narration and then never do a narration again. So basically, Kate Winslet's arc is that she's in love with her friend and coworker, and they used to sleep together, and then he started sleeping with someone else, so they stopped sleeping together, but he sort of keeps her on the back burner, strings her along, and she just can't stop being in love with him. And so she wants to get away to try to fall out of love with this man. Cameron Diaz's character is this really wealthy movie trailer creator. I don't know. I know that that's a real job. I guarantee it's not the way they portray it in The Holiday, where she has like a.
You don't think she works from home and cuts movie trailers
and has a mega mansion?
Oh, I mean, listen. The fuck if I know. I have no idea how much people who make trailers make.
There is a hilarious bit throughout The Holiday that I actually love, where when Cameron Diaz is like thinking about her relationship with Jude Law, the guy who does the movie trailers will step in and it'll be like, Cameron Diaz never thought she'd fall in love. And that's very funny. It happens throughout the movie, and I found that very pleasant when it happened. But her whole arc is at the beginning, her boyfriend cheated on her and she kicks him out of the house, and they have the beginning of The Holiday is just characters having conversations that are just exposition dump, because Kate Winslet's character, it opens up and she's at this holiday party at her work, and her friend who she talks to at the beginning is like, that's your man. And you guys were together, and then he started sleeping with someone else, but you're still in love with him. And it's like, I've never had a conversation where someone explains my relationships to me, but sure, why not? And
Aubrey, you are married to Josh, who you met on Tinder and went on a date where you walked around downtown Gilbert.
yes. And Cameron Diaz's thing with her boyfriend is she like kicks him out of the house, and he's like, "You never cry about anything. Even right now in this breakup, you can't even shed a tear." And she's like hurt by that, I guess. Cameron Diaz's arc in this movie is so fucking stupid because her whole thing is like, "I can never cry about relationships."
And she learns to cry from single father DILF Jude Law.
Yeah, well, yeah. So her whole arc is she goes to England, and then the like first night that she's there, Jude Law comes to the cottage because he's Kate Winslet's brother, and he's like, "Iris, like, what's up?" And then he opens the door, and it's Cameron Diaz, and he's like, "Whoa, you're like super sexy." And literally, like that night, Cameron Diaz is like, "Let's hook up," and they do. And the thing that makes me laugh is literally that scene happens, and then I was watching it with my husband, who turned to me, and I gotta find the quote that he said because it made me laugh a lot. Oh, also, they do the house swap over like iMessage or whatever, like through some random AOL website, and they agree that they're going to swap houses the next day.
Yeah, and then they do. It's like literally, it's movie timeline. This would never happen in real life.
Well, and then they're on vacation for 2 weeks. And one of my notes is, okay, so the timeline of this is 2 weeks, and I'm sure that that will be closely followed.
No, I remember watching the movie and going, well, this doesn't make any sense. This literally makes no sense.
Yeah. So anyway, so Cameron Diaz, she meets Jude Law. They hook up that night, and Josh turns to me. Well, first he said, "What if when they were saying that they agreed to have sex with each other, Jude Law just went anal?" So that made me laugh because it's like because like Cameron Diaz is like, "We could hook up, but I'm bad at having sex. My boyfriends have all said I'm bad at sex." And Josh is like, "What if he was just like, well, we could do anal?" That's where I remember I'm married to a man.
Yeah.
Because that's just a boy thing to say. But then they hook up, and then he said it's not going to be that easy for Jack Black. He's not just going to knock on Kate Winslet's door and she's going to be like, "Let's have sex." He's going to have to do some convincing.
Yep.
And weirdly,
But also, like, his plot is the plot is so different. Like, it's because he has a girlfriend.
yeah, so that's like the Cameron Diaz Jude Law plot is like she meets Jude Law, they hook up, and then she finds out that he has kids, and she's like, "Okay, like I really like you, but I'm gonna like go back to my job in real life in like a week." And then he's like, "I'm in love with you." And she's like, "Okay." And then when she goes to leave, she starts crying in the car, and she realizes that she loves him, and she turns around, and then they're together. Kate Winslet's plot is she's trying to get over the guy who's kind of been stringing her along. She goes to Los Angeles, and then when she is there, Jack Black's character pulls up with his actress girlfriend because he is a like a movie composer, and he was friends with the ex of Cameron Diaz. So he comes up and he's like, "Oh, I need the laptop back." And Kate Winslet's like, "Oh, like I don't know where it is. Can you come back tomorrow?" And they have I think it's supposed to be a sweet moment, but it reads really weird because if Jack Black was just a conventionally hot guy, you would see this as chemistry where it's just two people being like, "I like movies. I like movies." And they look at each other lovingly. But because it's Jack Black, it just feels odd. And it's just Jack Black placed in the role of a conventionally attractive person. And we're just supposed to buy that there's this instant chemistry that's not really there.
That was the thing that I was so confused about when I read that note from Nancy Meyers that she wrote the character for Jack Black, because all of the things, I think you wrote this in your notes, but like all of the things that like make him Jack Black and like make him attractive as a human person, a human being, and make him attractive in all of his other movies are not here at all. And so you feel like Bizarro World about it because you're watching Jack Black play a hot guy and be not hot at all.
Yeah, and I will say there are a couple scenes where his Jack Black mannerisms come out. So the long story short is that Kate Winslet's character becomes friends with the next door neighbor, who's this older guy who used to write movies, and they develop a friendship. And I guess she like invites Jack Black to a Hanukkah party with him, and then their friendship begins to blossom even more. And then Jack Black finds out that his girlfriend is cheating on him, and Kate Winslet sort of sees the dynamic between Jack Black and his ex girlfriend from the perspective of her and this guy who is stringing her along, and they just sort of get together. It's really weirdly paced because the man who she's hung up on flies to the United States and shows up at her door and is like, I like you. And Kate Winslet is like, oh my God, so you're definitely not engaged still, right? And he's like, no, I'm still engaged. And she's like, get the fuck out of here, you piece of shit garbage. And then Jack Black is listening to his ex be like, baby, I made so many mistakes. And then you don't see his reaction. But then later, Kate Winslet goes to an award ceremony for the older friend. And then Jack Black shows up. And then when they're there, they kiss. Sure.
Yay!
Yeah, like there are really cute moments where like Jack Black's mannerisms get to come out. Like there's a scene where they're in a blockbuster and Jack Black is like doing a bunch of little like I don't know, he's like making fun of all the movie scores and that comes across as really fun.
I think it's fun, but it's weird because it's just so both that scene and the scene where they're like writing this, like doing the little piano thing,
Mhm.
just come across like it feels way more forced than his comedy normally feels.
Yeah.
And I think that in a vacuum, I do find those scenes charming, but like in the context of the larger movie, yeah, I don't know. It just feels very like out of place.
Yeah. Also, I do want to just mention that there is a part with the Jude Law plot where his little daughter is in the scene with him and she gives him a little kiss. And Jude Law, I think it actually might have not been scripted because Jude Law's reaction to it is like, oh, thank you. And he kind of like breaks character for a second. And I think it might have just been that this little child actress just like gave him a little kiss during the scene.
I would also just kiss Jude Law.
Which me too. I would too. To be a child actor kissing Jude Law. Also, there's a scene where they're all like laying on the floor looking at like pretty fairy lights and the kids are just being precocious little British children and Josh was like, "All right guys, knock it off with the accents." Our favorite thing is joking that English people don't do that accent when no one's watching.
That's a crazy take, but I sure.
They just talk normal. They only do that when other people are around.
Sure. That's for sure. Sorry to all of our fans who are from not the United States. We don't think that you don't talk normal, or at least I don't.
I do.
Okay, well, the thing about Jack Black to me is that like I assert that he would have been hotter in this movie if they had focused less on making him adorable, air quotes,
Mhm.
and just let him be Jack Black, and that Miles feels kind of like a weird neutered version of the type of the characters he usually plays.
He does. Like his character is so soft spoken in
Yeah.
this that the direction I think that the movie is poorly directed for almost all of the actors, but especially for Cameron Diaz and Jack Black. I think Cameron Diaz is actually quite a good actress and I do not think that she is acting well in The Holiday, and I think that it was just a weird directorial choice because everything that she does is so it felt like kid acting. Like
Mm.
she goes very extreme with all of her emotions and even like her hand movements. Like she does that thing that I think is so amateur with actors where it's like me and she has like her hands on her chest. I don't know. It felt really weird to me. And then I feel like Jack Black was just continuing to get notes that are like, be soft, be cute.
Yeah. And I think the thing that's like true about Jack Black and like a contrast between him and Chris Farley in some ways is that like Jack Black's brand has always been really big on like both just embracing his body and embracing fatness and also like embracing his largeness as a human being and like who he is as a person, and he's very unapologetically himself. And that also that like he makes it clear that like being fat does not make you less attractive, and he embraces his size and like slays for all of that. And it feels like in this movie, the like one time we've really seen him in a rom-com role, the whole thing is geared towards making him smaller.
Yeah.
The bigness, the like being so confident and like in his body and in his personality and in his like just je ne sais quoi, his Jack Blackness is like the thing that makes him hot. And so it's like
Yeah.
taking all of that away. He's still a good looking guy. Like he is still a good looking guy in The Holiday, and like he is still very
Yeah.
cute in The Holiday physically, but it loses that like I think she was really trying to make him like a normal guy, and it's like people don't like Jack Black because he's normal. They like him because he's Jack Black.
Right. And that's the thing is that, like, being a little bit ugly gives you flavor and character. And in rom-coms where it's just you're a hot, bland man, you can just be a hot, bland man. But that doesn't work for Jack Black, because what makes Jack Black an endearing and intriguing romantic interest is his personality. I have like two thoughts on how I would probably fix The Holiday. So the first is that I think that Jack Black just should have been more like Jack Black. I think all the elements where his character is soft, he should have just been louder and more confident. I think that would have just made me enjoy the movie more. But also, I think I actually would have preferred this movie if all of the characters were all just on vacation and they
Mm,
met, and it was like a double date kind of vibe. I think that would be more interesting to me, because I also was like, it's kind of weird that Cameron Diaz and Kate Winslet don't interact at all in this
at
entire
all.
movie, and it just makes it feel like I'm watching two separate movies. It reminded me a lot of Julie and Julia, where I really like one of the movies and I really hate one of the other movies.
Yeah, that's true. And like to be clear, I was on Reddit last night reading about how people felt about Jack Black and The Holiday, and like not everyone feels this way, and there's like lots of people being like, oh, with the one I actually maybe the thing I actually linked. This is on a comparing like Jack Black to Jude Law. And it's like Jude Law is definitely objectively handsome, but doesn't do anything for me. Jack Black, on the other hand, is cute AF. He's funny, extremely musically talented, and adorable looking, in my opinion. During the Jude Law bits, I felt very meh, but I was literally crying and gushing during the Jack Black bits.
Well, and I think too that's because Kate Winslet's character is way more compelling than the Cameron Diaz character, because the Kate Winslet character is basically getting over a romance that was bad for you and opening yourself up to love, whereas the Cameron Diaz arc is much more like be emotionally vulnerable with
Mm,
people, and I guess you do that by having sex with them and then hanging out with their kids in 2 weeks.
yeah. Someone also said Jack Black is, to me, an attractive man. I would probably consider The Holiday peak Jack Black attractiveness, though. And I'm
Mhm.
like, brother, be more of a freak. The most boring Jack Black is the Jack Black you're the most attracted to. Get out of here. Also, like real life Jack Black is the hottest Jack Black. Jack Black is like an actual human being in the world as the hottest Jack Black.
No, literally. I think that I just think me and Nancy Myers disagree about what a cute man is like,
Yeah.
because when him and Kate Winslet kiss at the end, he does a
It's
little
so awkward.
he
It's so
he does a little
awkward.
fist pump.
It's so
He they kiss and he
awkward.
just goes, and it's there's also a part where in a montage he's briefly wearing a fedora, and
Oh
I'm like,
yeah.
no, 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 don't do
I
that.
know,
Don't do
I
that to my
know. It's
man.
fat man in a fedora, never good.
Fat man in a fedora is a hate crime.
It is a hate crime. Oh, speaking of a hate crime, as before we move on from Jack Black, do you know about Shallow Hal?
Of course I know about Shallow Hal.
I did not know about Shallow Hal until last night. For those like me who don't know what Shallow Hal is, it's a movie that Jack Black was in with Gwyneth Paltrow, where he's like an asshole and then he gets into an accident and then he only can see women as their like inner beauty. So he sees Gwyneth Paltrow looking like Gwyneth Paltrow, but everyone else sees like how she actually is in life is fat. And
Mhm.
the fat suit they put Gwyneth Paltrow in is nuts. And the like most of the humor in the movie is that like he's seeing a skinny hot woman, but when he takes her underwear off, it's huge.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Amy Schumer's whole brand of comedy. A lot of people have asked me if I've seen the Amy Schumer movie that has like the same premise. What is it? Isn't She Pretty or something like that?
I don't fucking know. I remember when I saw that because it's like she hurts her head and then I feel pretty.
I feel pretty. Yeah, the premise of that, I guess, is that she knocks herself on the head and then she thinks that she's had this miraculous transformation into a hot woman, but she's not. I actually think that the premise of that has a lot of potential to be really interesting and compelling, frankly, but I think it's just played for cheap comedy of like, see, she thinks she's in a sexy wet t-shirt contest and she looks ugly, and like, I think that jokes like that don't really work because the butt of the joke is still that she's not attractive, and the humor is that she's not hot.
That's the same thing that Jack Black said about Shallow Hal, is that like he
Yeah.
agreed to do the project because it seemed like it could have made an interesting point, but the way it turned out was just really, really demeaning.
Yeah, and I do think that Shallow Hal has an interesting premise to it, because this is this idea that, like, what if you saw everyone as conventionally attractive, and like how would that change your way of viewing people? It reminds me a little bit of a movie that I think does something similar to this very well, which is the movie Tootsie with Dustin
Mm,
Hoffman. Have you seen it?
mm-mm.
So in the
I've
movie
never seen any movie. We need to remember that.
So I love the movie Tootsie. Other people might feel differently, but I've always loved it. The premise of Tootsie is that Dustin Hoffman is a struggling actor and there's auditions for a soap opera. It's only for women. He decides that he's going to audition as a woman, and he does. And what I think is so interesting is how Dustin Hoffman talks about that role, because he said that the hardest thing, one of the things that was difficult for him, is that when he put on the woman makeup, he realized that he would be an unattractive woman. And it really changed the way that he thought about how he had interacted with women throughout his life. And he realized, there's this beautiful interview where he seems really moved talking about it. And he basically says, this role caused me to reflect on how many amazing women I have missed out on having any kind of relationship with in my life, because I didn't give them the time of day because they weren't attractive. And
Yeah.
I just think that that's a really interesting point. And like Tootsie to me is a movie that plays on that idea of your perspective changing based on like how a change in perspective changes your way of interacting with people.
Yeah, Tootsie just has the man in dress problem, which I know is the thing that a lot of people don't like about it.
But I actually don't think that that's that big of a deal in Tootsie, because it really isn't played as like, haha, this man is in a dress. I actually think it's pretty fucking base throughout.
Well, that's because you're a transphobe.
I am transphobic. I mean, I think that there are scenes where I think it's like somebody, I think, like pinches Dustin Hoffman on the butt, and then Dustin Hoffman does like his man voice and is like, "Hey!" And that's sort of funny. But it really, I don't know. I like Tootsie. All right, everyone, make sure that
Bigot. Boo, bigot.
make sure you email us and tell us that you want a full Tootsie episode in retrospective and explain to me why I'm wrong. Jessica Lange is also the love interest in that movie, and she's fucking gorgeous.
I'll be the trans voice of the people. You want
Hey,
to talk about Rob McElhenney now?
I think we can talk about how It's Always Sunny is such a good show until it gets to a certain point, and then it just gets worse and worse, and It's Always Sunny is bad now.
I have not seen any recent It's Always Sunny.
You don't
So
have to.
I don't know that I don't know that I can engage in that debate at this juncture. I haven't seen anything as we remember. But I wanted to talk about Rob McElhenney because I think that he's really interesting in that he got really fat for playing Mac and then also got jacked for playing Mac. And he's talked a lot about like both getting large and why he got large for Mac and then also losing that weight and then getting like Marvel man body.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting. He has really great takes on how for him to get as ripped as he was, that he did it through a lot of hard work and basically rearranging his entire life. So when people are like, it's easy, anybody can do it, he's a really based person for being like, no, actually, almost no one can look like this unless they dedicate their entire life to it.
Yeah, I'll read the quote from his Instagram where he talks about that because I do think it's relevant exactly right now. Okay, so he posted a side by side of Fat Mac and Jacked Mac, and he said, "Look, it's not that hard. All you need to do is lift weights 6 days a week, stop drinking alcohol, don't eat anything after 7 p.m., don't eat any carbs or sugar at all. In fact, just don't eat anything you like. Get the personal trainer from Magic Mike, sleep 9 hours a night, run 3 miles a day, and have a studio pay for the whole thing." Over a 6 to 7 month time span. I don't know why everyone's not doing this. It's a super realistic lifestyle and an appropriate body image to compare oneself to.
Yeah. I really like his take on this. I am unfortunately so damaged by the fact that I briefly listened to the podcast that the It's Always Sunny guys had, and it evaporated any love that I have for them.
Oh, really? I've never listened to it.
Their whole thing in that podcast is that they are spoiled rich brats and they complain about how hard it is to be rich, and like they're like the epitome to me of I think everything that they probably didn't want to become when they
Yeah.
started doing comedy. Like it's literally just shit like, oh, like it's so hard having to deal with Hollywood. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're rich. I also think that when he started hanging out with Ryan Reynolds, bad group. Bad group to affiliate yourself with.
Well, for those who don't know what the hell we're talking about, so Rob McElhenney is on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He plays Mac. In season 7, Mac was fat, and there's an season 7, episode 10 is how Mac got fat, and in it he confesses to a confused priest that his weight gain is the fault of other members of the gang. They used parts of an episode they had cut from season 6 to like show flashbacks, so you see both Fat Mac and like original Mac. And McElhenney talked about like the reason why he wanted to do that is it was a deliberate choice made to challenge the stereotypes and norms of physical appearance on television. He had observed that that stars of TV sitcoms generally got better looking as years went on. Chris Pratt! And the writer slash actor wanted to achieve the opposite. I also read somewhere that it was going to be a plotline where they all gained weight, but no one else wanted to do it. So he just did it by himself.
That is so fucking funny. That would have been hilarious if everyone had agreed to it. Yeah. I completely understand why they would not.
Yeah, I mean, and like Danny DeVito is already like he's a short man, but he's a larger man, and so it's like Danny wasn't gonna get fatter.
It reminds me of how in Seinfeld, when Julia Louis-Dreyfus got pregnant, instead of like writing in pregnancy or anything, they would just have her wear big coats and like hold a briefcase or whatever. But I guess Jerry Seinfeld had suggested to her that they just do a season where Elaine just gets fat. And Julia Louis-Dreyfus said, absolutely not. But then in an episode of Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, she was like, hey, Jerry, I just want you to know that would have been really funny if we did that. I don't think it would have been funny if they did that, and I'm really glad that they didn't.
Because it would have just been Fat Monica.
It would have been Fat Monica. It is funny, though, how the end of Seinfeld is literally just a fat-phobic joke, and the whole show really doesn't do that at all. So I'm a big Seinfeld fan, and I'm willing to just look past it, because it's like the only fat joke they make the entire series, and it's just the last episode. But it's the whole
Hey, they had to get it in. It was the last episode. They had to be fat phobic. They only had one more opportunity. What were they gonna do? Throw it away?
and that's the thing. I feel like too the Fat Mac thing, like when he goes from being Fat Mac to I guess Fit Mac,
Jacked Mac.
Jacked Mac, it reminds me so much of Chris Pratt revealing his Guardians of the Galaxy body on Parks and Rec. Was that before or after?
I don't know, but wait, can we watch the scene where he reveals Jacked Mac? Because
Yes.
it's actually kind of crazy. Yeah, unveiling of Jack Mac. It's crazy that Mindy Kaling is in this scene.
Yeah, why the fuck is Mindy
So the plot of this episode is actually called Make Patties Great Again. And they hire her to like ramp up the image for the bar. And so the point of this moment is Mac is being like, we can use how sexy I am now to like advertise the bar.
Yeah. You guys like me, right? That's me. I think the issue too with It's Always Sunny is that it's so funny when Mac is just implied to be a deeply repressed gay man, but then when they become more comfortable with it, I'm like, I guess that this is good for progress, but it is worse for comedy.
But that episode where he comes out is so good.
Sure.
But it's just like, it's crazy because it's so good because he takes his shirt off. It is, I mean, his body is crazy. It's like this
Yeah.
very like insane idealized man physique. And they're all like, okay, what are you, why would we care about this? And like that is so good because I think so many men go through that where they're like, I'm gonna get jacked as hell, and everyone's like, okay.
Yeah, like I mean,
I think that's what set Chris Pratt on his villain arc. Is I think he thought everyone was gonna be like obsessed with him when he got skinny and hot, and instead he became not endearing at all. And then,
but I mean, people did become obsessed with him because he became skinny and hot, right? Like, it's revealed in Parks and Rec that he's ripped now, but like his actual Hollywood career completely took off with Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he was on every like hot man list, and he started to really pop off. And I think that that was the validation, right? Like, this is who I have to become to be an A-list actor.
no one real ones know that that Chris Pratt was hotter when he was early Andy than late Andy.
Chris Pratt
Real ones know.
Chris Pratt was so hot when he was fat, and when he was, I mean, because he used to be fatter before he was in Parks and Rec. So
Yeah.
I like fat Chris Pratt, and then I like slightly
Medium
less fat,
fat.
medium
Small
fat Chris
fat.
Pratt, small fat, mid-size Chris Pratt.
Mid-size Chris Pratt. Size 8 to 10 Chris Pratt.
And I love him in Parks and Rec, and I just think that he's so, once again, it's that Jack Black energy where it's like he's charming and sweet, and that makes him attractive, but then he gets super ripped. And I think with Chris Pratt, it was a thing that I've seen happen to many men where it goes straight to his fucking head and he just becomes a douchebag.
Yeah. It was really interesting. There's an episode of Armchair Expert where Dax has Kumail Nanjiani and Rob McElhenney on to talk about like men's bodies, because it was right around the time that Kumail got super jacked for the Marvel movie that he was in, and then right around
The Kumail reveal of his body, I feel, is the real life equivalent to the reveal of Fit Mac. Like, because literally, I remember there were all the pictures when it came out, but then that movie fucking flopped. It did not catapult him into being an A-list actor, and now he just is regular build again, which is fine because I fucking love Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah. And they talk about it a lot on this podcast about being like, they thought all these things were going to be really different and then they weren't. And one of the things, I think we should listen to this part.
I used to love Armchair Expert. I got to where he said that he was laying in bed with his wife, and then she was like, I just want you to know I don't find this attractive.
Yeah, and it's like, and he says, he goes on to say that like this was like when he was like peaked, ripped, body yada yada, and like she just didn't like it. And he talks about later that like she liked when he was like had the Fat Mac body, and then he was like, so because he had to like do a lot to be Fat Mac, he had to gain a lot of weight. And then there was this portion of time before he then was going to do the bit of getting like super jacked, where he was like still big but had started like working out a ton again, and so he was big and strong, but he wasn't like cut and lean. They talk about later that they both like at their like peak jackedness weighed in the 150s, and I'm like, that's less than I weigh. Oh my God. And like, Rob is like, I think 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
And so she liked when he was big, but she did not like
Mhm.
when he was like jacked and vascular and shit. And it's like, I think that that's so real. And I think that that's how it's so, the Chris Pratt thing is so interesting because I think he got a lot of media attention for it. But I feel like
Mhm.
everyone I know found him less attractive when he was, but that's because everyone I'm friends with is based.
Well, I think I think literally like Facebook moms
Yeah.
thought that he was hotter. Like that's the thing where I
The
think
evilest people in society.
but that's where I think we have to remember that our perception of what is attractive really is in some ways divergent from the norm. Because I think that for some reason, if you grabbed like random Facebook mom, they'd be like, I wish that I had a big hunky military man to sweep me off my feet.
See, Aubrey, but you say that. And last night when I was looking stuff up, I saw a whole thing about how a lot of women find Danny DeVito attractive, and he was once listed at number 5 on a list of most attractive men. So I think more of us are freaks than you know, backslash, we're just better than other people.
I mean, that is true. I also maybe it's just that I think that the Facebook moms run the media more than they do.
But that's who, like, People magazine is geared towards, which is why every
Right.
year when People magazine like announces the sexiest man of the year, all the people we know are like, huh? Really? Okay.
Although I do always find like not the one who gets number 1 sexiest man of the year, but I
Yeah.
think that the list in and of themselves are always so interesting because it'll be like Hugh Jackman, John C. Riley.
Yeah. It's always like a huge range of men.
Yeah. Well, because women are attracted to more diverse men than I think men are attracted to more diverse women.
It's interesting too. They talk about that on that episode of Armchair Expert as well, where Rob talks about that like he thinks that like as much as he sort of dunks on Caitlyn for being like unattracted to him when he was quote unquote sexy, he's like, I also feel that way about women where I like when people look like too worked on, too skinny, too whatever, it's not attractive because he wants them to look quote unquote healthy. And he also talks about that like there's something about when you seem like you invest a lot like that much in yourself, it becomes unattractive because for like from a partnership perspective,
Mhm.
because it's like you're going to care more about working out and looking good and whatever than you're ever going to care about this relationship.
Yeah. It reminds me of I feel like I'm talking about my husband a lot on this episode. Sorry guys, he's the only person I talk to other
Well,
than
can we also
McKenna.
I mean, we can say like Josh is a funny fat man
He is a funny fat man.
who's also hot and who's also your husband.
Well, yeah, but also like my husband was a musician and is really crafty and good with tactile things and attractive for many reasons. I also just think that he's hot because fat bodies are hot. But I remember once I was talking to him and he said, I don't like when women are too attractive. And I was like, thank you, husband, for picking me. But it's that same
It's
thing
that
where
same sentiment.
I think when some people are very conventionally attractive, it can come across as being self-absorbed, and that is its own can of worms, right? Like we were texting about Legally Blonde the other day, and I think that the thesis statement of what I'm getting at is that it's hard for everybody because even if you're super conventionally attractive, people are oftentimes like intimidated by that and it doesn't make your life all that much easier. But it does a little bit, but not everything is not perfect once you're conventionally attractive.
Yeah. I feel like that's a good place to move into sort of our internet boys. We're going to talk about a bunch of internet boys next.
I love you, Henry Zebrowski. I love you, Marcus Parks. And especially, we love you, Ed Larson. Ed Larson, please come on this podcast. We'll be your friends.
Wait, why? Okay, I would like for them all to come on. I mean, Ed, this is ham, but I would like for all of them to come on the podcast.
We just want to be part of the Last Podcast Network.
Well, no, I want to steal their business plan and create their own Last Podcast Network.
What we want to do
and then I want to steal Henry's skin.
What we want to do is be mentored by the Last Podcast Network in a mentor-mentee type of relationship that is non-sexual. I cannot emphasize
don't think you needed to emphasize that. They all okay.
I need to emphasize this because I think that some people will interpret this as a sexual relationship, and I need to clarify this is not. I would like non-sexual mentoring. I've had enough sexual mentoring for my lifetime, and I would like this to be purely professional and platonic mentorship.
I'm laughing so hard that my stomach hurts.
I would especially like non-sexual and platonic mentorship from Ed Larson.
Ham.
Ham.
Okay, the reason why I thought this was a good time to transition talking about Henry is because, so for those who don't know, Henry Zebrowski is the host of the last podcast on the left. He was also in The Wolf of Wall Street, Heroes Reborn, The Characters, and Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. He also, if you watch the documentary that SNL released, he's the one who auditioned, who was naked. I think we talked about that last time. He is married to this woman, Natalie Jean. They've been together since 2015. She's an actress, a stunt performer, a dancer, and she is genuinely one of the hottest women I've ever seen in my entire life.
She's gorgeous.
Natalie is so beautiful and like has videos of herself on her Instagram where she's like in the splits in a ring and also on fire. Like she's also the coolest person. And it's very Roger Rabbit, Jessica Rabbit. We have to say it.
It is. Who is not a rabbit.
Who's not a rabbit? Who's not a rabbit? Well, Roger is, not Jessica. But I think it's also that like Henry's body has like kind of changed pretty dramatically from 2015 to now. Like he's gone from fat to mid-sized fat. But like at all points, like he has also been very attractive because he's like he has that same thing that I think that Jack Black has, where he's just very like comfortable and in his body, and he makes a few more like ha 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 I'm fat jokes than Jack Black ever really has, but he was a theater.
He's got Riz. He's got Riz. The kids call it Riz, and I'm calling it Riz too. So I know occasionally Henry will make a self-deprecating comment about his weight, and I'm like, hey.
There's a really good clip from one of the streams that I was gonna try to find where they're all drumming on their bellies. And I do think Ed Larson is the ideal male form.
Yes. That I also think that we really should emphasize that part of the reason why we want non-sexual mentorship from the host of last podcast on the left.
Okay, I'm sorry. Keep going. All of these men are like 40.
I want non-sexual mentorship from these men because we want to just be friends with all of their wives.
Oh yeah, I also want to be friends with their wives.
Like, I think what we really want is we'd like a relationship with these men, but that relationship is also a catapult to their wives, who is really the cream of the crop that we're trying to get at here.
Non-sexually.
It's non-sexual mentorship. We have to be very clear. I want non-sexual mentoring.
Okay. Anything else on the last podcast, guys?
We didn't even mention Marcus.
Because he's skinny!
Get out of here!
We can't talk about him on the funny fat guy episode. That motherfucker's skinny!
No thins!
I'm like, Marcus and I are like, I think equivalent, like, male to female bodies.
Do you think thin mints are thin?
What?
I think the thin... I feel like the Thin Mint Girl Scout cookie is trying to claim thinness in a way that feels performative.
Are you saying the Thin Mint cookie has a fat energy? Yeah, I agree with you. You know what? I agree. The lemon, and the lemon ones have a skinny energy, and they should be called skinny little lemon bitches.
I want fat mints, and I want skinny little lemon bitches. Girl Scouts USA at gmail.com. Hello, it is Aubrey again. But I think there are some people who are honorary fat people. Those are Carrie from the movie Carrie is an honorary fat person.
She's fat in the book.
She's fat in the book, so she's meant to be fat. I think Kate Winslet is an honorary fat person because people called her fat when she wasn't fat, but she does have fat girl energy.
Also Jessica Simpson.
But Jessica Simpson less so. I think Jessica Simpson is a thin woman who was called fat.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I don't think she's an honorary fat person.
Madeline from the little girl with the yellow hat. She's She's got fat
Is
girl
it because she
energy.
has Paddington Bear energy?
A little bit. Same with Matilda. Matilda has fat girl energy.
Do I get to be an honorary fat?
I think that
Aw.
I think that you being in dance has given you a perspective on your body that can make you relate to a fat person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you mid-size energy.
Well, according to the internet, I'm already that because no one actually knows what mid-size is. You wear a size 8 in pants and people are like, mid-sized!
We threw around the word mid-size. I want to say I hate the word mid-size. Mid-size is something that people tell themselves because they're afraid of fatness,
Yeah.
but they don't have the confidence to call themselves
Well,
thin.
mid-size was also definitionally a term, me mansplaining this to Aubrey. Mid-size was also like definitionally a term for people who like were sort of between plus size stores and
Yeah.
straight size stores. So it's really like size 12 to 16. But women
Yeah.
who are size 6 to 8 were like, I'm mid-size because I have a tummy sometimes. And it's like, and I have a gun.
Yeah, I have a gun and I'm gonna kill you with it
Yeah. Which that would
because
include me. But
but I mean
I deserve it.
I mean I think that for most of my life I probably was mid-size cuz I think for most of my like teens and 20s I was like a 12 to 14 and then in recent years I'm now solidly plus size. I
Do you smell what the rock is cooking?
I leveled up. I'm a 16, god damn it.
Your Pokemon evolution into just being fat.
My Pokemon evolution was that I went from being able to go from like XL at anthropology to now I am in anthropology 1X plus. And that's okay.
Congratulations.
That's okay. I unlocked a level that most people don't get.
Well, I'm crying from laughing so hard, which does transition well into talking about two comedians from the Dropout streaming service, Jacob Wysocki and Lou Wilson.
Yeah.
So, for those who don't know who a Dropout is, because this is some more like niche internet stuff. I mean, it's not really.
No.
I still feel that way, but also like Dropout is so big that like that is kind of not true anymore. But Dropout is a comedy subscription streaming service founded in September 2018. It emerged from the ashes of College Humor, if you remember that from YouTube. Dropout streams original programming and does not run advertisements. It's very lit. I recommend it. Its content is mainly composed of improv comedy shows like Game Changer and Make Some Noise. You may have seen clips of those on TikTok or YouTube Shorts. They're both hosted by Dropout owner Sam Reich, but it's also well known for its D&D show Dimension 20, which is hosted by perfect man Brennan Lee Mulligan. Dropout series often feature a rotating cast of regular comedians and performers, including Jacob Wysocki and Lou Wilson. This section, which I wrote last night, we're going to be drawing a ton here from the video essay, The Jacob Wysocki Effect, a Dropout video essay by Dead Men Inc. Productions on YouTube. His name is Ken Johnson. Thank you, Ken. And also shout out to my boss, Jess, for sending it to us. We were talking about the podcast during my one-on-one, and she was like, you guys should watch this video.
Woohoo!
So Jacob was not a College Humor guy. He was added to the rotating cast of pals during the Dropout era. He first appeared on Make Some Noise, which is basically Whose Line Is It Anyway? And he was immediately like, I remember the first episode of Make Some Noise he was on, and I was like, who is that man?
He's so fucking funny. So I will admit that I haven't watched that much Dropout content. I watched a lot of it when I was in New York visiting Mackenna and then was like, I should buy this. And then I didn't.
One of the days when it rained in New York, Aubrey was here for an extra day so we could go see Teeth at Playwrights Horizons. And
it's amazing.
It rained all day, the day, like, I think that was like a Saturday. And so we stayed inside and watched Dropout.
Yeah, it was awesome. I had never really watched any of their content before, and I was totally enamored with it, and it was perfect because we had been on this trip for like multiple days, like running around. Like I saw every neighborhood in New York, and so it was very nice to just watch funny people be funny.
Yeah, there's a clip specifically of so there's one of the shows Game Changer, which is a show where the rules change every time. I believe it's on one of the Sam Says episodes, which is like a very extreme Simon Says game. And Sam tells them to like make something that would look good with like special effects on it. And Jacob goes Super Saiyan, and it's so funny. I was watching it last night and it made me cry laughing again. I think it's important to know that like Jacob uses his body for comedic effect, but it's never in like a ha ha ha, it's funny because I'm fat way, but more in the Roscoe Arbuckle leaning into athleticism and physical comedy way. And his size like really never comes up in any of his comedy bits on Dropout. Like, they've never been like, and Jacob's fat, and Jacob's never been like, and I'm fat.
Yeah.
And so I think like the main part of this that I wanted to talk about was the first time Jacob was ever on Dimension 20, which is the D&D show, was on a series called Never Stop Blowing Up, which is an homage to action movies. Jacob
Mhm.
plays Andy Dang Lightfoot. Dang is a clerk at Dave's Video World, and he believes he's being watched by an alien named Rashab. And then when they get transported into the Never Stop Blowing Up movie, which is sort of the conceit of the series, he plays Greg Stocks, who is basically James Bond. And Jacob is not playing against type when he plays Andy, but he's definitely playing against type as Greg. They basically all play against type except for Iffy Wadiway, who plays a Fast and Furious guy who literally looks like Iffy. But to speak specifically to Jacob, they're never letting a fat man play James Bond.
Never, because I think that's what's interesting too is, you know, that Rami Malek trailer that you keep seeing every time you go to the movies?
Of course I do. That movie, The Amateur, is out now, and I probably could have seen it because I'm on the AMCA list, but I saw the trailer so many times and it annoyed me so badly seeing it for months that I'll probably never watch it.
When I saw that trailer with our good friend Bryce DeLulo, you thought we were gonna have a Bryce. Bryce is back, baby! Woo, 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 woo. You thought that we weren't gonna mention Bryce in this episode. You were wrong. When I saw a movie with Bryce and that trailer came up, Bryce turned to me and he was like, "This movie would be better if this was a fat actor," because
Yes.
the premise in the trailer is that Rami Malek is like a tech guy, like an IT guy for the FBI or something, and then his wife gets killed and he wants to go on a vigilante mission, and instead of being like a running like gunning shoot 'em up action hero type, he uses his tech knowledge to kind of trap people, and you know, it's more of like a cat and mouse like intellect game, but it's Rami Malek, who I fucking love. Rami Malek is one of my number one celebrity crushes. I think he's so sexy. I love his weird little bug eyes and I just want to kiss him on the face. But I do think that it would be a more powerful movie if they casted someone who doesn't look like they could be James Bond. And I think Rami Malek looks like he could be a James Bond.
Do you know who'd be a really good lead in that movie?
Who?
Zach Cherry from Severance.
No, literally. Like that's the exact type of guy who I think would make that role work so well.
Yeah, like that would actually. I'm sorry, like the part where is it Woody Harrelson or is it Woody Harrelson or is it Holt McElhenney? Whatever, whoever the like FBI director is in that movie or the CIA director is, the bald one. He like looks at Rami Malek and he's like, "I don't believe that you could disarm a grandma or something." And it's like Rami Malek like we saw him play Freddie Mercury. He's like a dude. He's like a dude.
Like, I think that if they really wanted to, they needed to make Rami Malek look like he was a lot scrawnier and mousier, which I think that he is like a small guy, but they don't make him look small enough in that trailer where I'm like, okay, so
I think that they missed opportunity to get Zach Cherry in there, you know?
This is a Zach Cherry fan podcast.
This is Zach Cherry fan podcast. I also think because of Jacob's comedy style, which is very like high octane and exuberant and lightly chaotic, and Bond is very like subtle and controlled. When they introduce Greg Stocks, Jacob is even like, he looks like every man. You would never notice him. But Jacob ends up using that vibe to create really fun comedy between like a very cool and collected character and asking for insane shit. So Aubrey, if you'll click on that link for me.
He wants to fly his jet to space.
Yeah, so what Jacob does in this scene, so like in D&D, you have to like ask the DM if you want to do something crazy, and then they tell you how much to like roll for it. And in this sequence, Jacob goes, "I want to make a normal, grounded move, and I want to fly my jet up to space." And it's just like, that is a lot of the comedy in this, is like Jacob will like be doing the Greg Stocks character and be like, "I'm gonna do something very chill, very normal, and I just want to blow up the moon," you know? And so that's like, I think becomes the comedy of Greg Stocks. He also goes Super Saiyan at one point during Never Stop Blowing Up, and it's very delightful, and everyone should watch it because Never Stop Blowing Up is my favorite Dimension. Well, it's, I think, the funniest Dimension 20 season. There's ones that I think are more like deeply emotional, but I cried watching Never Stop Blowing Up.
I love that. We will eventually do some kind of D&D something. I don't see a universe where that doesn't become part of our universe.
Yeah. I'm just having trauma from all the times I've tried to schedule D&D.
You and I meet for this weekly.
Yeah, we're built different.
We are built different. It's just getting all the other I was gonna say all the other honkies in line.
Speaking of
They are all
speaking of
honkies.
honkies, I was about to critique this video for not mentioning Lou at all. Lou is black, so he is not a honky, in fact. But I was about to critique this video for not mentioning Lou Wilson at all, the other like fat male comedian on Dropout. But then 2 days ago, Deadman Inc. released a 2-hour long The Lou Wilson Effect. I love myself too much to have watched the entire thing at 10:51 p.m. last night, but hell yeah, 2-hour video, and I watched portions of it.
Yay.
So Lou is a member of the Intrepid Heroes, which is the core Dimension 20 group. He was in UCB, which is like Second City. Also, it's kind of the same shit.
Yeah.
Brennan Lee Mulligan, who is the DM for Dimension 20, for most of the Dimension 20 seasons and for all of the Intrepid Heroes seasons, was also in UCB, so I think that's a connect. Lou is also the official announcer for Jimmy Kimmel Live, and he was a writer for Jimmy Kimmel Live for a long time before that.
Good for him.
I think it's important to note that like Lou is also black in addition to being a fat comedian. And on Dimension 20, he always plays black characters. All of his Dimension 20 characters have been black, which is not common in tabletop gaming spaces and like is generally a very cool thing about D20.
That's wild to me that that's not common.
Oh, there's so much racism in tabletop gaming, and like all characters are kind of assumed default white or sometimes default Asian because of racist associations with mysticism.
Bad.
But the really cool thing about D20 is there's a lot of space for other POC characters, trans characters, autistic characters, and it's very beautiful. People come on the show and are able to like play characters that really reflect their identity or don't.
Yeah.
But there's also, I think Brennan is also very intentional in making it an inclusive space. There's a really fun moment in the first season of Fantasy High, which is the first Intrepid Hero season, where the principal of the school they all go to, they see his minifigure for the first time and he's black. And Lou is like, has Arthur Eggfort been black this whole time? And Brennan's like, yeah. And Lou's like, hell yeah. So it's like a space where like people are allowed to like be reflective of their own selves, but also it's not like, and now this is our race season where we talk about race.
Yeah.
Lou has so much energy, like he's ready to go 100% all the time. And like while I think Jacob is a high energy performer, his vibe is way more chill. Lou is more intense. And Aubrey, I'm gonna have you click on that link.
Okay. I love that.
So this is from an episode of Game Changer called Escape the Green Room, where Brennan, Siobhan, and Lou are all sitting in the green room waiting before the shoot happens. And then they discover that they're actually locked in the green room and it's an escape room. And Sam, who's the host, comes on the TV and is like, you have 1 hour to get out. And Lou immediately picks up a guitar and smashes it against the wall. It takes a half a second for him to make the decision to start destroying shit in the room. It's so funny.
I think that you told me that you thought that Lou Wilson and I had very similar energies.
You do. You have a very similar energy to Lou Wilson, and I mean it.
No, because that's the exact kind of shit that I would do if it was like, all right, you're in an escape room, I'm immediately punching the wall.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so I think it's fun when Lou and Jacob get to be in scenes together because they like have similar but different energies. They have fraternal twin energies. Yeah. And also they're both really, really sexy.
They are.
And the thing is, I have said that to people. I've been like, I think that Jacob Wysocki, it's more, honestly, I get more pushback about Jacob than I get about Lou.
Yeah.
And people are like, really? And I'm like, yes. Like, these are hot men. The thing is, okay, and I do have to say, I have coworkers who know cast members of Dropout really well. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this part, but I'm going to anyway. Everyone on Dropout is kind of sexy.
Everyone on Dropout is hot.
Everyone on Dropout is hot. And like, part of it is they are funny. I think everyone on there are like quote unquote traditionally attractive people who are on Dropout, like Lisa Gilroy. But there are so many people who are like Jack Black, who are like, just objectively good looking, but also like carry themselves. They're so funny. They're so in their bodies. They're so of themselves that like, I'm just like, I am in love with you.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about Jacob Wysocki and Lou Wilson. Aubrey, now we can watch Uber, but on horseback, which is one of my, wait. There's two.
You little squid.
I know, it's good stuff.
When are we going to learn about dinosaurs? I love that. That's delightful.
Yeah, so those two, Aubrey, do you want to describe what happens in those two little sketches?
So in the first one, there's a lot of screaming and things that I find pleasant. In the first one, I also have no context for this because I don't really know remember how some of these
Oh,
games work.
I'll say how Make Some Noise works. So Make Some Noise is the Whose Line Is It Anyway sort of, not knockoff, it's different, but basically they get a prompt and they have to do it. And so the
Yeah.
prompt that Jacob and Lou get in that first one is, I think, like when sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me become real.
Yeah. And he's a squid and he's threatening him. I don't really know what the plot of the scene is, but I found it funny. I don't
It's very funny.
You're asking me to retain it.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. I should have had you do this right after you watched it. So Lou is bullying Jacob, and he is like, "You're a little squid. You're a little squid." And then Jacob goes, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but I will hurt you." And then he like rips Lou apart using magic, and it's very funny. Yes. And then what happens in the second one?
The second one is Uber on horseback, and Jacob is the horse, and Lou is the Uber passenger, and they are chugging along, and then they stop for gas, and Lou is like, "Are you gonna charge me for this?" And Jacob's like, "I don't know, whatever the app says. Between the carrots and getting the leather condition, I don't make any money, so a tip is appreciated." And Lou is like, "I'm just gonna put my headphones on."
Yeah, and listen. If you never need hours of fun, you can watch a lot of Dropout on YouTube and you don't even have to pay for it.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have to say about the Dropout, guys.
Yeah. So I think that our last point here is one that we've talked about a lot. I don't think as much throughout the series, but something that we've talked about a lot just personally is this perception that people can either be funny or attractive, and it makes Hollywood very confused. There are certain actors where I think that this perception is harmful for them getting roles that are probably more fulfilling for them. Two actors who I think embody this are Ryan Gosling and Chris Evans. Chris Evans is a very funny comedic actor. He started out doing a lot of comedic roles, like in Not Another Teen Movie, which is
So
my favorite of the parody movies of that era.
I agree.
I think it's hilarious. I think all the time about the scene in that movie where the girl gets thrown in the pool and then she comes out and the girl splashes water on her, and there's just an extra in the background who goes, "And now you're all wet." I think about that all the time.
I think that they're an interesting case to compare and contract because I think Ryan Gosling has managed to break free of this at this point. I think they let him be funny now. They didn't for a long time. Yeah. And people, every time he got cast in a comedy, people be like, "Ryan Gosling's not funny. Wah, 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 wah." And it's like, yeah, he's always been funny. He's always been funny. He just was in rom-coms. And so people are like, "He's not funny." He's so, like in Larson and The Real Girl, he's so funny. He's always been funny. Chris Evans started in comedies, got marveled. Yeah. It's funny because he got marveled and was Johnny Storm, but that didn't really affect him because Johnny is funny. Yeah. But then he got Captain America. And now it's like they will not let him break free of this like action guy, hot guy trope. And it's like, they let him a little bit in, because he's so funny in Knives Out. So they let him a little in Knives Out. But it's like, let my man break free. Let him go back to being a little freak.
Right, like I don't think that Chris Evans is getting asked to do like a Ken and Barbie type role. No. I think that the roles that are probably coming to him are like, we want you to be in this action movie or this smoldering drama or this detective show, which I think are interesting roles. I actually think that they're more interesting roles when we put a Jack Black type figure in them.
Yeah. But so I'll just say that like the whole thing here is not just that like fat men can only be funny and cannot be romantic. It's like a triangle where it's like you get to pick two. And that's it. Yeah, and that is, I think, ultimately bad for media, right? Because it's bad. We just get media that reinforces stereotypes around attractiveness and humor and personality, and I don't know. I feel sort of negatively about mainstream media. I think that there have been some things that have come out in recent history that are... Everyone clip that and be like, Aubrey Hoffer, Fox News correspondent, doesn't believe in the news.
I don't know. I just feel like right now there's only ever like 3 movies in theaters, and I feel like they're all the same. I think we're starting to get out of that as Marvel starts to implode upon itself, which I hope will happen.
But everything this year that's coming out is a sequel. Aubrey, there's a Zootopia sequel coming out this year that I didn't even know about when we recorded that episode. Me and one of my friends, Isabel, were looking at a list of like upcoming releases this year, and almost all of them are like sequels or remakes or whatever. And then we got to Zootopia 2, and I was like, God damn it!
This PMO. PMO. I will say that my note in this was just, what the fuck was Mike and Molly? I mean, we could probably have a whole other episode that's about the way fat people are depicted in relationships. Mike and Molly is just a crazy show because it was on for so many seasons. And I remember when it came out, I remember the first, like, probably season of episodes. And it was just a lot of, haha, these people are fat.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like ultimately the show that came out last year, 2 years ago, Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself.
I want to watch it so bad.
I think that show did a really good job of deconstructing. It's not really the Mike and Molly trope, but it's the trope in a lot of sitcoms with fat men, which is like
It's
fat
It's Kevin
bumbling.
James. It's Kevin James.
Yeah, it's fat bumbling husband and hot put upon wife. And I think that Kevin Can Go Fuck Himself did a better job than I ever could of unpacking that trope.
I literally forgot that Molly and Mike and Molly was Melissa McCarthy, and that this show
Wait,
was
is
on.
it?
Yeah, and that this show was on for 6 years. No, right? If you asked me at gunpoint who the actress in Mike and Molly was, I would have been like, oh, some random fat actress who was never in anything else. It's Melissa McCarthy.
Can I read you the description of Mike and Molly on Google when I looked it up?
Yes.
Because it makes my body shudder in a negative way. Mike Biggs is a good-hearted Chicago police. Yes. Mike Biggs is a good-hearted Chicago police officer looking to lose weight. Molly Flynn is an instantly likable 4th grade teacher with a sense of humor about her size. The two meet one day when Mike speaks at an Overeaters Anonymous meeting, and they fall in love, thanks in part to their mutual love of pie and their desire to resist it. The whole description is about them losing weight. So that leads me to believe that most of the show is about them trying to lose weight.
Yeah. And also, I think the actress in This Is Us had like a big weight loss too, right?
I don't know. I have to admit that I've not seen a single episode of This Is Us and have avoided it culturally just because I don't like to be sad that much.
My parents watched it, and it was when my husband and I were dating, and he would come over to my parents' house, and he would always be like, what is that show where every time I come in, it's just a dad sitting on the bed talking to his kids about something? And I'm like, This Is Us. And so,
do you know who is the only young person I know who loves This Is Us?
to Bryce.
It's Bryce. Well, Aubrey, we've talked about funny fat men for 6 hours of our lives now. Any final thoughts?
I think that there's a lot more that we can say. I think that we've really only scratched the surface. I think that the big takeaway is that to be fat and to be funny is not a crime. What is a crime is the little lemon Girl Scout cookies that are not called little lemon thin bitches, but they should be. And I'd like to arrest all of the Girl Scouts who are calling those fat mints thin mints.
I'll end by saying, I think that if we've learned anything over these past few episodes, that you can be fat and funny and hot, and all of those things can be true, and all of those things are true. And I want to kiss a lot of the people who we've talked about over the past 3 episodes. And now an ad from hers.
We are not going to profit from GLP-1s until they pay us a lot of money.
Have a question or a topic that you would like for us to discuss? Send us an email at informedattraction@gmail.com.